Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. It's Friday, January 15th, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-kyan. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. North Korea staged a military parade to mark the end of the regime's 8th Party Congress. KCNA reported that the North Korean leader had attended this grand parade held in Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden laid out the details of his $1.9 trillion coronavirus rescue package, which aims to provide relief to households and businesses who have had their source of income battered by the pandemic. And South Korea reports 513 new COVID-19 cases, with new infections staying below the 600 mark for the fourth day. All eyes are now on whether the government will ease the current level of social distancing measures in their announcement tomorrow. Our top story this morning, North Korea has staged a military parade to mark the end of the regime's 8th Party Congress. Despite showing off a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile, it appears the North did not parade any ICBMs through Pyongyang's main square. Our Defense Ministry correspondent, Kim Ji-yeon, starts us off.
Fighter jets flying in formation during a military parade Thursday evening attended by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square. The event was held to mark the end of the 8-day Workers' Party Congress. Going by images released on Friday by the North state-run Korean Central News Agency, the regime showcased its state-of-the-art weaponry, including a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile, which it presumably labels the Bukgusong 5. The report called it the world's most powerful weapon that will overpower the world with our strengthened military technology and underwater strategy. Other weapons seen rolling through the streets were modified versions of Russia's Iskander-class short-range ballistic missiles, one of the North's so-called strategic weapons that the regime claims can invade South Korea's missile defense systems. But unlike the North's last military parade 3 months ago, North Korea did not release images of intercontinental ballistic missiles, which could be aimed at sending Washington a message about a strong military might as denuclearization talks remain in limbo. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says it's analyzing the military hardware displayed during the parade. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank has frozen its benchmark interest rate at a record low of 0.5%. The decision made during a policy meeting on Friday likely comes as part of efforts to offset economic uncertainties from both home and abroad by maintaining an expansionary policy. The central bank has also likely considered the stance of major economies holding their key rates. But despite the pandemic, it's seen that the rate has been kept steady over concerns that further cuts could be counterproductive. This is the fourth time the Bank of Korea has kept its interest rate steady since it lowered the rate to 0.5% in May last year. South Korea's health authorities reported 513 new cases of COVID-19 on Friday. As the figure stays below 600 for the fourth day in a row, many are awaiting the government's announcement set for Saturday on the revisions to the current level 2.5 social distancing rules. Of the new cases Friday, 484 were locally transmitted, most of which were in the Greater Seoul area. 29 were from overseas. The total number of cases has now surpassed the 71,000 mark. With no slowdown in the global resurgence of COVID-19, some countries are taking some of their strictest measures ever to try and limit the spread. This includes France, which is set to introduce a 6 p.m. curfew. And another grim milestone, as reference website Worldometer says, the global death toll from COVID-19 has topped 2 million. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Most of France has been under an 8 p.m. curfew, but to contain the rapid spread of the virus, the French government will impose a nationwide 6 p.m. curfew for at least 15 days starting Saturday. While a 6 p.m. curfew is one of the toughest measures imposed in a country, France has already been under the strict curfew in some parts of the country, especially in the hardest-hit eastern regions. So far, schools will be allowed to remain open, but indoor sports activities have been banned again. In order to protect students, teachers, and faculty, at least 1 million COVID-19 tests a month would be carried out in schools. In addition, travelers arriving in France from non-EU regions would have to present a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours and will be required to self-isolate for 7 days. This would be followed by a second test. In the UK, all inbound flights from Brazil could be banned in response to the discovery of a new variant from the South American country. Ministers have also met to discuss other possible measures, and flight bans could be extended to other South American countries as well. Currently, arrivals from Brazil are required to self-isolate for 10 days. In Japan, the number of daily cases continues to rise at record pace, as the country reported 6,591 cases as of Thursday evening. The country also reported 64 additional deaths. Health authorities fear that casualties might continue to rise as the number of patients in ICUs continues to rise. Currently, there are 920 critically ill patients, setting new daily highs for the 11th straight day. In China, the first reported COVID-19 related death was reported on Thursday, the first since May. A woman in Hebei province died Wednesday afternoon and is known to have had pre-existing health conditions. The latest report comes as the province has reported a rapid increase in cases this month. In less than 2 weeks, authorities have locked down Shijiazhuang and other parts of Hebei province in an effort to keep the virus from spreading. Meanwhile, a team from the World Health Organization arrived in Wuhan on Thursday in order to try and investigate the origin of the virus. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Japan is reportedly cautious about filing litigation with the International Court of Justice against Seoul over its latest compensation ruling related to the Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery. Kyodo News Agency reports that Japanese government officials are not certain things would proceed well for them. Tokyo has taken the stance that South Korea and Japan agreed in 2015 to end the so-called comfort women issue, quote, finally and irreversibly. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden on Thursday revealed the details of his American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion proposal aimed at fighting COVID-19 and helping the U.S. economy recover. Kim Yan-sing with the details.
A big push to get the U.S. out of the pandemic. President-elect Joe Biden on Thursday local time laid out the details of his $1.9 trillion coronavirus rescue package, dubbed the American Rescue Plan. The proposal aims to provide relief to households and businesses who have had their sources of income battered by the pandemic, and to provide the money needed for the U.S. to combat the virus. First, the plan will send an additional $1,400 to eligible recipients on top of the $600 check sent in December under the Trump administration. The plan also proposes to increase unemployment aid to $400 a week, an upgrade from the previous $300 weekly federal unemployment benefit. $25 billion have been set aside for assistance with rent for those who had lost their jobs during the pandemic. The proposal also calls for a raise in the minimum wage to $15 an hour, while giving crutches to small businesses with a $15 billion grant program. As for tackling COVID-19, Biden plans to allocate $50 billion to gear up COVID-19 testing and another $20 billion to vaccinate all U.S. residents, regardless of their immigration status. In the coming weeks, Biden is expected to put out another proposal focused on creating jobs and tackling climate change. Kim Yan-sung, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics is launching a fresh range of smartphones packed with the best technology and most stunning-looking screens yet. South Korea's tech giant unveiled its latest 5G-capable flagship Galaxy devices, the S21 line, on Thursday, the last day of the Consumer Electronics Show. Ji-young reports.
AI-powered cameras, bold new designs, and ultra-fast processors. These are just a few of the cutting-edge features that Samsung Electronics says will be carried by its latest line of Galaxy smartphones. Samsung on Friday Korea time unveiled its Galaxy S21 series online.
Galaxy S21 is groundbreaking on all fronts. the fastest chip ever for Galaxy, together with our most complete software and user experience.
There are 3 types in varying sizes: the Galaxy S21, S21 Plus, and one with the biggest 6.8-inch display called Ultra. The premium Ultra model was the highlight of the Unpacked event. It comes with Samsung's most advanced pro-grade camera and the most vivid display ever seen in a smartphone.
People take a lot more pictures than they used to, and they take far better quality pictures than they used to. And having an easy-to-use, really high-quality camera is actually pretty inspiring. So I expect Samsung to push the edge of the envelope with that, with the Galaxy S21.
The S21 and S21 Plus will be available from January 29th and can be pre-ordered from the company's webpage. The retail price starts at $799 for the S21 and $999 for the S21 Plus.
Because sales of the previous flagship S20 series were low and the iPhone 12 is selling well, it seems Samsung Electronics is trying to lower the price below 1 million Korean won in order to maximize sales.
The Ultra will retail at $1,199 and goes on pre-sale on Friday. Global market researcher Counterpoint Research says sales of the S21 series are forecast to be greater than those of last year's flagship Galaxy S20. It expects 28 million S21 devices to be sold worldwide by the end of this year, about 8% higher than last year's sales of the S20 series. A researcher at Counterpoint says U.S. sanctions on Chinese tech firm Huawei and Samsung launching the series 1 month earlier than its typical launch date are likely to have a positive impact on sales. 엄지영, Arirang News.
With tax season just right around the corner, the National Tax Service has introduced changes to this year's year-end tax settlement service, making the complicated process much more easier for users. Our Choi Min-jung tells us more.
Starting Friday, South Korea's full-time employees can access the data needed for the annual year-end tax settlement. This year, the National Tax Service is providing taxpayers with a much more simplified version of the service, allowing them to easily see necessary information at one look. The new service also allows users to log in to the system using digital key certificates, including Pass and Kakao. It's important to note these certificates issued by private companies will only work using PCs. Taxpayers can get access to the data between 6 a.m. and midnight after logging in to the NTS Home Tax website. On top of the simplified system, users can now access more data for tax deductions. Also from this year, the NTS is providing additional expense data on glasses purchases, health insurance, as well as relief funds. Taxpayers will also be able to look up monthly taxes paid to landlords of public rental houses. A facility for reporting false or unavailable medical expenses will be available until the 17th. Full-time workers can save some money this year too, as the government is greatly expanding tax deduction on credit card spending. The income deduction rate on credit card expenses has been raised to 30% and debit cards to 60% for March 2020, when COVID-19 infections became more widespread. From April to July, the percentage of tax deduction for credit card payments is as high as 80%. The application for income deduction and tax credit for foreign employees are identical to those for South Korean nationals. However, housing-related deductions and credits do not apply. Depending on the foreigner's status as a resident or non-resident, the extent of tax obligations also differs. Specific guidelines on the year-end tax settlement for foreigners are available on the NTS website in different languages, including English. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Good morning. It's going to feel nothing like midwinter today, but high levels of fine dust remains across much of the country. So have a face mask that can filter out the fine dust. Light rain in inland regions will not do much to ease the dust in the air. But it shouldn't rain that much. Keep an umbrella handy though. Meanwhile, mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province and Ulleungdo and Dokdo will receive snow instead. Ulleungdo and Dokdo, in fact, could see up to 15 centimeters into Sunday. Afternoon highs in most parts will be in double digits, getting up to 15 degrees in Daegu, Busan, and Gwangju this afternoon, Seoul at 9 degrees. Today's rain will bring freezing conditions. Temperatures will drop to mid-winter readings again this weekend. Then next Tuesday will be a very cold one again. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's a wrap for us at the hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
With the third wave of COVID-19 infections, South Korea has been on edge trying to keep the hospital bed occupancy rate under control.